Imagine two people who started learning the guitar on the exact same day. Same beginner app, same cheap acoustic, same shaky first chords. 3 years later, one of them is up on a stage, their fingers moving like they belong there. The other is still stuck on the same four chords, still flubbing the change from G to C, and still telling themselves they just need more time. Here is the strange part. When you add it up, they put in almost the same number of hours. If it wasn't the time, what actually pulled them apart? We've been told the answer is 10,000 hours. It's the idea that if you just grind away at anything for that long, you'll come out the other side as an expert. Malcolm Gladwell put it in his book Outliers, and from there it became a standard piece of advice. Just put in the hours. But if you've ever poured time into a skill and watched yourself barely move, you know the hours aren't paying off the way they're supposed to. The 10,000-hour rule isn't actually a rule, and the scientist whose research it came from spent the rest of his life trying to correct how we use it. The number comes from a 1993 study by psychologist Anders Ericsson. He studied violinists at a famous music academy in Berlin, splitting them into groups by their skill level. The pattern was clean. The top violinists had stacked up dramatically more solo practice than the rest. By their early 20s, the elite players had logged roughly 10,000 hours. The less accomplished ones had logged far fewer. We usually picture those elite musicians white-knuckling their way through 12-hour days to hit that number. But Ericsson's data showed something else. They practiced in focused chunks, usually around an hour at a time, and they capped their total practice at roughly 4 or 5 hours a day. Many of them napped in the afternoon. They treated their practice the way a sprinter treats a race. Short, intense bursts followed by recovery. The 10,000-hour slogan erased the fact that those hours were built out of small, sharp, well-rested sessions. They understood that you cannot sustain the hard kind of practice for very long before your brain is fried. Most of us practice by playing the song we already know or rereading notes we already understand. We run through the motions while our minds are half somewhere else. Ericsson saw students do exactly this, loving hours while their skill level remained flat. He called the alternative deliberate practice, and it starts with a narrow target. Instead of trying to get better at guitar, you focus exclusively on cleaning up one specific chord change so it doesn't buzz. This requires immediate feedback. You have to know right away whether you got it right, from a teacher, from a recording, or a video of yourself. Without feedback, you're just rehearsing your mistakes until they become permanent habits. Then you have to work at the edge of your ability. Research into how brains learn suggests a sweet spot. You should be failing roughly 15% of the time. If you're getting everything right, you've slid back into your comfort zone. According to the data, that frustrated feeling when you keep just barely missing isn't a sign of failure. It's the indicator of the exact right difficulty level for growth. True practice is defined by this constant correction. It is the opposite of cruising. The hours were never the mechanism. They were just a side effect of doing the hard thing for long enough. In 2014, a team led by Brooke McNamara tested this idea by pulling together 88 separate studies across music, sports, and professional work to see how much practice actually explains the gap between the great and the average. The results showed that across all fields, deliberate practice only explained about 11% of the variation in performance. In games like chess, the impact was higher, at 26%, but in professions and education, it dropped to near zero. This suggests that a messy pile of other factors, like the quality of teaching, starting points, and individual circumstances, fills in the rest of the gap. Ericsson pushed back. He argued that many of those studies were counting junk hours, counting years on the job or casual play as practice when it wasn't. He claimed that if you only count strictly defined deliberate practice, the effect on performance jumps to over 50%. This debate shows that two people can spend the same hour and get two completely different amounts of learning out of it. The hour is not the unit that matters. The attention inside the hour is. This brings us back to our two guitarists. Same hours, but two completely different results. One player slowed down their worst chord change, recorded it, heard the buzz, and fixed their finger angle. The second player ran through their favorite songs, felt good, and put the guitar away. One player was practicing, the other was just playing. You don't need 10,000 hours to become functional. Research from Josh Kaufman suggests that with 20 hours of focused, deliberate practice, you can go from clueless to useful at a surprising number of skills. You can start this tonight by asking 3 questions before you practice. What specific thing am I trying to fix? How will I know right away if I'm doing it right? And am I working at the edge, where it's slightly uncomfortable? Mastery isn't about the size of the pile of hours. 1,000 sleepy repetitions will lose to 100 feedback-soaked ones every time. You don't need more time, you need better time.